What is up, guys? You have found the canceled Misfit show. Let's have a great evening. So, if you have been watching any of the lives shorts that I put out, one of the big things I had to say today was being asked why I care so much about transgender issues. And of course, with only a minute, there's only so much you can say in that short. But basically, it was I care about the truth. I care about children. And I don't want what is happening in Canada, which we'll talk about later, to proliferate. But starting off, talking about the truth, it's important. It's important to fight for the truth, no matter what. So if people were going around saying 2 times 2 equals 7. It would be not just as important, but it'd be very important to go, no, 2 times 2 equals 4. 2 plus 2 equals 4. 5 times 6 equals 30, because the truth matters. Now, with regards to children, again, we talk about it all the time on here, that children die when this ideology is pushed on them. Adults die when this ideology is pushed on them. When all you can do is spread the lie, people just don't live well with it, and it's going to get even worse, especially up in Canada, which again we will talk about in just a few minutes. So it's a short little thing. I didn't really have that prepared, but I definitely want you to understand where I'm coming from and why this is such a big issue to me. We do have Marcus on. If he doesn't actually, let me make sure that he can be heard. There you go, buddy. You there?
Going on, guys? Good to be back. Yeah, I'm here. Good to be back.
I'm glad you're here. You kind of threw me for a loop last week because my script was not prepared for just me for 45 minutes. But
yeah,
that's fine.
Yeah, we had. I expected to get home earlier from work, but farming never is an exact science.
Farming never is an exact science.
Plan.
I mean,
no, so I never try to make plans because they seem to never work out.
Well, but, I'm glad that you're a hard worker. There's not enough of people like you.
The worst part is though, I don't know about that, but worst part is I came home to cook and I ate and I was back and I was done right in time. Got a call from somebody like, "Hey, I need you to do this for me." And somebody that worked for us, and I was like, "Oh," so never ending, even at 8 o'clock at night.
Well, we're glad to have you here today. I think that the show benefits from you being here and not just me sprouting whatever for 45 minutes. Even though that is fun sometimes, but I am definitely glad that you are here to bounce some of this off of. So we're going to start off. We have a video for you. Just little parental guidance. There's strong language in this video. I have bleeped it out, but you can obviously tell what this guy's saying. Yeah, so a mild viewer warning. Let me just play that.
But I stand before you today beholden to no human and working a paying union job, and no limber of an administrator is going to tell me how to teach my classes, because I'm a tenured professor. So if you want to go complain to your dean, you, go ahead. I'm retiring at the end of this year and I couldn't give a flying any longer. You people are just vectors of disease to me, and I don't want to be anywhere near you. So keep your distance. If you want to talk to me, come to my Zoom. Anyway, back to my soliloquy. So what you really want to know is, how the am I going to get out of this course alive and with an A? That is the real question. How does this professor grade? Well, let me set your mind at ease about that. You don't have a thing to worry about because there's absolutely nothing you can do. You have no control over your grade. It doesn't matter how hard you work or how great your grades are. My grading system is based on the Calvinist doctrine of predestination. It's good enough for Calvin, it's good enough for me. None of you are good enough to earn an A in my class. So I randomly assign grades before the first day of class. I don't want to know about you. I don't even want to know your name. I just look at the number and I assign a grade. That is how predestination works. And don't come complaining to me. Take your complaints to God. He ordained this system, not me, to me. So when I look out at a classroom filled with 50 students, I see 50 selfish kids who don't give a whether grandpa lives or dies. And if you won't expose your grandpa to a possible infection with COVID, then stay the away from me. If you don't give a about whether grandpa lives or dies, by all means, come to class. Now, before any of you go running to complain, and it happens every semester, Dr. Mailer said, we shouldn't come to class. Dr. Mailer said we shouldn't come to class. Let me clarify my attendance policy.
Okay, that is enough.
My history professor's intro video.
Oh, there we go. So a lot of people, I'm sure, are going to ask why I played that. My mom is probably going to text me. I'm actually surprised it hasn't come through yet. And there's a very simple reason for this. These people exist. So before I get into my own little soliloquy, Marcus, what were your reactions to that?
Just to double check, because I don't hear the videos you show very well. Was that the TikTok you sent me the other day?
Yes, the crazy college professor.
Oh man, that was absurd to me. I don't know how he's on tenure.
Yeah, I don't know how he made it that far, to be honest.
No. But yeah, I don't know how everybody in that class doesn't either withdraw from the class completely or swap classes. Because that would be me.
Well, one of my thoughts was that he might have been like a troll. Like that video might have just been to troll his students to find out who was serious. And if he did, it's well done. I mean, but let's put aside that for a second. If this is who you are in general, you probably don't need to be, teaching anybody anything, especially when you don't know history. Because he is a history teacher. I'm not yet. He's a history teacher. It doesn't seem to know history. But more than that, if you're this scared of COVID where you show up, later on, I didn't play the whole thing. Later on, he says, "I'll be in class with a helmet on." It's the helmet that he was wearing at the very beginning of the video. And if you're that scared of COVID, maybe it's just time to retire. I just don't understand even someone his age being this scared of it. But I don't know. Also, there's a point. There's a point to that. This is not just because it was kind of funny to watch. Why are there so many stories about educators of all the kids, colleges? Why is there so many stories of educators being the most scared of this? This guy's probably off the rails and lives alone, and I don't know, his wife probably took everything in the divorce. But he's not alone. He's not. We've talked about before, you have educators making kids eat lunch outside in the 40-degree and below weather, wearing masks all day as an elementary school kid, and being told that if that mask slips below your nose, it might kill someone. Heaven forbid someone actually die around one of these kids after they've been told that, because do you know how bad that would mess you up? I certainly don't. And then there's
more than you want to imagine.
What's that?
Probably more than you want to imagine, because if you tell a kid you can kiss somebody for not wearing a mask, somebody in their life dies, they could easily just be like, "Oh."
Yeah, and then someone dies around them, and they think, "Oh, that was my fault." So, and then you get this, which might be even crazier than everything we've seen so far, which is high school teacher. Check this out, Marcus. High school teacher charged after putting child in trunk of car over fear they had coronavirus. First reaction, Marcus. I know you can read it over there. But first reaction just to that headline.
When I first saw that, I was like, I had to reread it. Because I was like, ain't no way this is real. Because who in the world puts anybody in the trunk, much less a child, and over not even that they have corona, that they fear they may have it.
No, yeah, that's ridiculous. So, go ahead.
I'm tired of seeing all these crappy teachers. I want to see how I want to see good teachers. There ain't none out there no more. Apparently,
well, here's the thing. Crap. I mean, good teachers don't make headlines, and I do try to remember that is that good teachers do what they're supposed to. But I mean, we've talked about it before. Well, we've talked about it on here before with we have the fact that the ridiculous. I'd have to go back and look in my show notes. But the ridiculous number of kids who are sexually assaulted by teachers or by students, and there's no protection for them, things like that. But
the bad part is all these crazy things we say on the show, and the crazy teachers we find.
Yeah, they're designed to be sensational. I'm not gonna lie, I designed it to be sensational.
And the thing is, of course, there's great teachers out there, and they don't get recognized, but. On that same token, as far as these crappy teachers with these crazy stories,
they still have kids.
There's so many stories of horror teachers that don't make headlines or that we don't find.
Exactly.
So I mean, for just as many good teachers, there's just as many insane off the walls teachers, especially.
And they really push us to say, hey, parents, be involved with your schools. I mean, that's the best thing. That's what, when we talk about this, either get your kids out of public school or be involved in the school so that stuff like this isn't happening around your kids. So let me go ahead and finish this a little bit. A Houston area mother is facing criminal charges after she allegedly put her child in the trunk of her car because she thought the child had coronavirus. You read that right. She was so scared that she put her kid in the trunk of her car. Because it's not as if, and this was the last episode. I gave statistics on children dying in car accidents versus coronavirus accidents. You and him are much more likely to die, and him especially. I think it's a him. Especially being in the trunk. By getting in a car accident, you're much more likely to die. But let's not look at that science. Let's not look at those statistics. According to the DA's office, Sarah Beam, 42, was at a COVID-19 testing site at Pridgeon Stadium on Falcon Road on January 3rd when officials were alerted her teenage child, 13, was in her car's trunk. Fox 26 reported. According to charging documents, Beam said her child was in the trunk because they had previously tested positive for COVID-19 and as a result wanted to prevent herself from getting exposed to possible COVID while driving the child to the stadium for additional testing. You know what this makes me think of, Marcus?
What's that?
I just hope this kid is never actually in real danger around her mom. She seems the type of person who, if she was in a convenience store that got robbed, she would put her child in between a gunman and her. And I can't say that for certain. I don't know this woman, but she put her child in the trunk just because she was worried she might get COVID. I have a feeling if there was a gunman that came, she would 100% hold the child in front of her and be like, take him, not me.
Now, let me get this straight. This is not only the child's mother, but also a teacher at the same school.
Yeah,
correct?
So Beam, who most recently taught at Cypress Falls High School, has been placed on administrative. It doesn't even get her fired. I just realized this. So, I mean, I kind of, I put together my whole script today, and I didn't even think about the fact that she was put on administrative leave. She was not fired for this. She was not fired from her job as teaching after endangering her own child.
My thing is what do you think would happen? What do you think happens whenever you get back to the house? Are you just going to let your kids starve?
Yeah, are you going to lock them outside of the house? Are you just going to lock them? They're probably just going to lock them into the room and throw stuff up through their window that's partially cracked open, and she just keeps chunking it up till she gets that trick shot right through the edge of it.
Now, what are you going to do with the kid when he gets to the house? I mean, you've got to take care of it. You got to feed it, make sure it's, you got to make sure your kid is properly taken care of.
What if he or she has to use the bathroom?
I mean, what difference does it make if it's in the backseat of your car versus in your bathroom
That's a good
or in a
question.
bedroom?
It's
I mean,
so
what?
stupid, dude. And
It
yes,
just
here's
blows.
she's a teacher who was put on administrative leave. So I guess even teachers can't even be fired for being arrested for putting their own child in danger at this, school system. So whatever, that's who you want educating your child right there. These two people, the professor and this woman, are the two people who you 100% want taking care of your kids. And this is from people who know that children are germ factories when they go in and still choose to teach them. Except in Chicago, who, seem to want to keep going back to virtual school, and then the mayor just cancels school outright because that's the best thing to do. But all in all, they're not quite as crazy as this guy.
In my thong, vaccination, right or wrong. Dr. Fauci, give me that ouchie. I want it in my body.
My name's Alex Stein. I'm here today because we got to vaccinate our children. We really don't have enough vaccines. They're not mandatory, and that's the problem.
Will the real Dr. Fauci please stand up? Please stand up. Please stand up. Vaccinate your mom. Vaccinate your dad. Vaccinate the
I can hear you.
Vaccinate the sad. Vaccinate your babies. Vaccinate them, even if they got rabies. Vaccinate my life. Vaccinate my wife. Vaccinate your DNA. Vaccine created by the CIA. Vaccinate your body. Vaccinate me at the party. Vaccination freak. Vaccination freak a leak. I want the vaccine in my life. I want the vaccine for my wife. I want to vaccinate you all day long. Vaccinate you while I wear my thong. Vaccinate me. Vaccinate who? Vaccinate she. Vaccinate her. Vaccinate them. Vaccinate my friend. I want to vaccinate them.
Okay, hey, that's enough of that. So it actually turns out that guy's actually a troll, as a real troll. He's doing it satirically. But if you paid attention to, Twitter and even some conservative, some of the Daily Wire shows had him on there and they were using that to make their points. But just all across, people were fooled by that. And I think, and it's like the old Onion or Babylon Bee satire, people who fell for it. It's because when they wrote it right, you could not distinguish the satire from reality. And that's where we're at. That could 100% be real. And none of us would question it. None of us would question it. So the fact that he was able to pull that off is both legendary, one, but it just goes to show how scared and how people, that's not the point I want to make. The point I want to make is how crazy people are about getting other people vaccinated. So we're going to talk about the Supreme Court ruling later, but there's people out there who probably have thought about doing that. It's not too far from reality. So, any last words on any of this, Marcus?
I didn't get to listen to the video for some reason on YouTube Live. I can't hear the video like I could when we did it on Facebook. So I didn't get to hear it.
I got you. Well, when you watch it afterwards, you can see it. It's a guy dancing and singing a vaccination song. Anyways, on to probably the most important story of the night. So this is the Canadian conversion therapy law that was just put into effect in Canada. And yes, I know it's in Canada, but we'll talk about why that's important in a little bit. So this thing is wild, evil, and downright reprehensible, especially because it comes under the C4 designation, because I don't know, I like blowing stuff up. But it's supposedly designed to keep people from undergoing conversion therapy. And that term brings up images of someone who has maybe homosexual proclivities strapped to a chair and being zapped until they don't anymore. That does not happen in the West. I'm just putting that out there. It does not happen in the West. It used to. It was wrong. But it doesn't happen anymore. But that is the guise they're doing this. Although, let me just read it for you. This is in their criminal code. So, the definition of conversion therapy means a practice, treatment, or service designed to change a person's sexual orientation to heterosexual, change a person's gender identity to cisgender, and that just means it's a stupid word meaning the biological sex you were born with. So I was born a male. I identify as a male, therefore I'm a cisgender male. It's a stupid term made up by people who have to obfuscate everything to get what they want. Change a person's gender expression so that it conforms to the sex assigned to the person at birth. Repress or reduce non-heterosexual attraction or sexual behavior. Repress a person's non-cisgender identity, cisgender gender identity, or repress or reduce a person's gender expression that does not conform to the sex assigned at birth. And I have some thoughts, and some of these thoughts you've probably heard if you know anything about this law, and hopefully I have something original. First of all, this is a criticism you'll see about quite a bit, and I want to get your opinion on this, Marcus. They went out of the way to make this a one-direction street, meaning it would have been bad enough that they tried to ban all of this both ways, but literally only puts the ban against the truth. So you can tell a boy who is confused and thinks he's a girl that he is in fact a girl. But if a boy says, I think I was confused, I may be a girl, but I think I'm a boy, you still have to tell him he's a girl by law. What do you think about that, Marcus?
It makes no sense to me. I still haven't made sense of why this law makes any sense, as to what the actual purpose of it is, as to what it could actually accomplish. Because if you can just change it up on a whim or be told, I don't see this accomplishing whatsoever. But I mean,
well, it's purposefully vague for a reason. We'll get into that reason in just a minute, but it is very purposefully vague so that until there's whatever legal challenges Canada has to it, it can be interpreted in a wide variety of ways. It's under the guise of we're going to stop the old zapping conversion therapy and stuff like that. That's its guise, but they couldn't write it like that. They had to write it very vague so they could apply it to anything, as you'll see. But before I get to that, and the second point is you can't repress or reduce non-heterosexual attraction or sexual behavior. Which is funny about that is that most parents want to repress all sexual behavior in their teenagers. But does this law mean that they can be reported for stopping their teenage daughter from being intimate with another teenage girl? Or can they only stop it if it happens to be, they happen to find her with a boy? But that's the way it's written. That's the way it's written. Is that, point E, D, to repress or reduce non-heterosexual attraction or sexual behavior. So basically you cannot parent anymore. Not when it comes to this. And there's other reasons why, which we'll get to, but and this alone, you cannot be a parent anymore who cares about their child, about your child's well-being. And the worst thing is that all of this is punishable by 5 years in prison. 5 years for speaking the truth. 5 years for telling a biological boy he is in fact a boy. And like I said, it's vague and for good reason, or at least good reason in the leftist mindset. There is nothing here specifically referring to a therapist. And what that means is there's nothing stopping pastors from being prosecuted for publicly claiming the Bible and Christian theology states that you are born male and female and that's what you are, or that homosexuality is expressly forbidden. Explicitly forbidden. In fact, this bill has provisions that could essentially ban the Bible in Canada. So it's part of the way through this, Marcus. Are you as flabbergasted as I was reading through this?
Yeah. I can't believe that you'd be sent to prison for. I can't believe the fact that you'd be sent to prison just for misgendering or missexualizing, or not even just doing that,
or just, no, yeah. So this is like watchful.
Not even anything that serious.
Exactly, but I mean, even therapists now can't, say they cannot say. So if a 5-year-old boy comes to them and says, "I'm a girl," they cannot now say, "Well, let's wait and watch before we start you on any sort of hormones or start chopping off pieces of you to approximate the look of the other gender." No, they have to immediately affirm it, or they're in the clink for 5 years.
What do you think that's going to do to suicide rates? You think that'd make it rise?
That's going to skyrocket. Again, you are literally, this is literally fighting the truth. Literally fighting the truth.
I mean, thank God this is in Canada right now. It'll probably make its way in the United States before too long.
Oh, no, yeah, no, I'm definitely talking about that a little bit later on. You kind of jumped ahead of me in the notes. But what do you think about the fact that this could, let me read this, because this is part of the bill, and it could legitimately ban the Bible in Canada. So listen to this. Advertisement for conversion therapy, so all those things, means any material, including a pornographic film, video, audio, or other recording made by any means of visual representation or any, this is the important part, any written material that is used to promote or advertise conversion therapy contrary to section 320.103 or what I just read you. Is that just me, or is that the Bible? Which literally explicitly says homosexuality is a sin, and you were born male and female, he created them.
Yeah.
And they lump this in. The bad thing is they lump this in with child pornography, voyeuristic recordings, or advertisements of sexual services. All of those would be great things that they could seize and destroy. But no, they had to add in that last part, which the Bible, it sweeps up in its very vague reading of it by design. I have no doubt that this is an attack on Christianity. And if you think that's a slippery slope argument, because I can see it, I can see where you're saying they're thinking, no, they won't do that. I mean, I'm not the only one. The Gospel Coalition is worried. They sent out a letter to pastors, like, with the whole intent being, we need to proclaim this. It was a letter designed to state the Christian theology of you're born male and female and other things. They sent it out to a lot of churches in Canada with the intent for those churches to sign it and send it to the House of Commons and the Senate. But the Gospel Coalition is worried. Fox News reports that over 4,000 pastors, some in Canada, some here in the States, are worried. A common sense critical look at this, combined with the attack on Christian values all over the world, makes the case that this could be the first step that's very bad in a list of steps that are very, very bad. And here's another insidious part to it. What do you do if you're a parent and don't want to subject your kid to this? What do? You can't get any good therapy in Canada. So you, come to America or somewhere else, maybe? I hope you're ready to stay, and I hope you're able to get American citizenship. Because this atrocity has an addition to it that applies to people who take their kid out of Canada for this purpose. Can you believe that? They're trying to legislate elsewhere? I guess they're not trying to legislate elsewhere. They're saying they're legislating what they can do and come back. What can you do and be able to come back without going to prison? Right, Marcus?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
You sound flabbergasted.
I don't know how you get away with it. I don't know how that makes any of this makes any sense.
It's not designed to. It's designed to make sense. It would have to have some element of truth.
Has this actually been passed? Like,
yes. Back in December, I think the Royal Assent.
This has not only been made up, but made it through to be an actual law now?
Yes, it's going into effect in the past few days. This was voted on in December, and then the Royal Assent was in late December in Canada. And so this is actual law. This is actual law. No,
it's like the Green New Deal bull crap where it was all this bull crap. I figure it might have been something like that, but it was more serious contender for. But it's actually made a laws even worse. It's fabulous. Absolutely, I can't even speak straight.
Well, talk about this. What if a Canadian takes their children to an American? Say they live in a border town, right? And they go to church in America, and that pastor stands up in the pulpit espouses that homosexuality is a sin, or that male and female, he created them. Basic fundamentals of Christian theology. And then go back to Canada, and then their kid rats them out. Because by this text, they could go to prison for 5 years. That is expressly breaking the law in prison.
There's no way that they can get somebody in America in jail for that. There should be no way that they can get somebody.
No. It's not American jail. It's coming back to Canada after taking their kid to that.
Oh yeah, I thought you were saying that you come get the pastor. I was like,
no, you can't come get the pastor. You can't come get the pastor. But the kid, if the kid says their parent took them to that, and that's what happened. Yeah, under a casual reading of this law, the parents could go to prison for that for 5 years. It's sickening. So last week I talked about the After School Satan Club in Illinois. Did you hear that one, Marcus? The After School Satan Club?
Yeah, that one was interesting.
So I couldn't stop laughing about it. And after the show, actually, my mother was she called me and was like, why were you laughing through that? She eventually realized that I was flabbergasted by the whole thing. And that's partially true. I was flabbergasted that there would be an After School Satan Club out in the open.
Hey kids, let's go worship Satan today.
Yes. But now that I've had a week to mull it over in my head, I figured out that that's not the only reason. Part of the fact that I had to laugh is that evil just doesn't care anymore. It's cartoonishly unsubtle. The fact that the church has been such a non-force in the culture, that Satanism, or at least Satanism in the form of the Satanic Temple, has gone from an obscure externality, living in the shadows and feeding on the fringes of human society, to putting flyers in the public elementary school. It used to be, there'd be no way anywhere in America that the Satanic Temple could put flyers for an after-school Satan Club in any public school. I mean, this didn't happen 15 years ago, did it?
No, but you never hear this 15 years ago.
But the church has become such a non-cultural force that this is happening. And now the church is going to have to wade into politics and become its own constituency. And by that I mean, we're not going to be able to sit back and say, culture we'll sort it out. We have to actively attack on a political spectrum.
You talked about how the law in Canada is pretty much is almost a direct attack on Christianity in the Bible, but I would I'd almost say that Christianity's been attacked and almost directly since homosexuality has become any sort of force in the country. Because
I mean, you had the bakers who couldn't say no to not making a cake for a gay wedding. So you're right. He's not the only. This is not the first attempt in this hemisphere to attack Christians. I get that, but my thing is we make this argument a lot with different stuff. I think we make the slippery slope argument at least once a week. Talking about where does it go from here? And you look back to 10 years ago, how long ago was that? 10, 12 years ago? Whenever homosexuality started becoming big. I think 2011.
And it's in that range. And, you look at it, it's like, oh, it's not a huge deal. But you look at it, think, this is a slippery slope where we're starting to do. And then, look at us now.
Oh,
that's the problem.
100% agree with you.
The slippery slope from where we're at now. Where can we get? I mean, look where we're at now. How much worse can it get? I mean, we can go to the Canada standards and be even worse now, but I mean, does it get worse than that too?
Well, I was thinking about it actually when I was writing this, and I was saying that how this after school Satan Club lived on the fringes of human society, and it's gone from that to putting flyers into public elementary schools. This is the same thing writ large, and it's large enough to outlaw true Christianity from an entire country in the Western world. Christians, for the first time in this hemisphere, are going to have to choose between boldly proclaiming one of the core tenets of Christianity, that God is all-powerful, that he created male and female, and to say otherwise, say that God either maliciously or unintentionally screwed up people's souls and their bodies, that he put a female soul into a male body or vice versa. Either of which is diametrically opposed to the source of our doctrine, the Bible, and incompatible with true Christianity. Pastors, deacons, and everyone down the line is going to have to make the choice to either stand up to this evil and probably be sent to prison, or walk as a free man physically, but in chains spiritually. That's just, that's where it's going to end up.
That's part of that whole like slippery slope thing I said earlier. You know, back when this stuff started, the church kind of stayed silent, and this slippery slope put us where we're at now, and where we will be in the future. So now, you know, where we should have stood up, the church should have stood up 10, 12 years ago. Now you're looking at where, you know, in another 10, 12 years, if you stand up, you may be killed.
I don't know about killed or put in prison at the very least. If we don't stand up now, you're right.
Because I mean, if you look at the signs, the end of the, you know, as far as the end of the world, and you know, and Jesus coming back and everything, it can't be too far off.
It can't be.
So I mean, it's only a matter of time before Christianity's at the point where we're getting put in prison or killed because
this is it.
For what we believe.
This is it. This is Christians who are going to have to stand up for what they believe.
That is what it is.
Or they're going to prison.
In Canada's already put it in motion. It's already there. So I mean,
and let me put in a warning. Let me put in a warning real quickly. Don't believe for a second they don't want this in the United States. 25 states and even more localities have bans exist to protect the conversion therapy again. Under the guise of the old school, we're going to shock this out of them. Now, as of right now, every state and locality have a religious exemption. So churches can say, we're against homosexuality, you were born male or female. We can still say that in this country, rightly, because, you know. But how long do you want to bet that will last? My money is, if this is successful in Canada, they are going to bring that here faster than you would think possible. Last word on it.
I think that if we don't get Democrats out of majority leader and out of leadership pretty fast, which I don't see happening, unfortunately, with how this country is as far as blue states and all this stuff goes. But if you don't get them out, we don't. Yeah.
Conventional wisdom tells us that there's going to be a bloodbath for Republicans in 2022.
I know. That's the problem.
No, it's going to be good. It's going to be good. We're going to take back both the House and the Senate.
I would love to see it, but I don't know, man. There's so many idiots out there that just believe CNN fake news about, oh my God, the Republicans are so bad. And there's some people that they look at, say, a Republican and say, just because you're a Republican, you're human garbage. I mean, that's a fact, you know, and that people are a lot that out there. So it's only a matter of time before the young minds are shaped by teachers or by friends like we're seeing by these liberal views, and it's only a matter of time before we can do nothing about it because it's just everything's liberal.
Yeah.
So it's only a matter of time. And
well, I hope you're wrong.
If we see it.
I hope you're wrong.
We will see it.
Yeah, I hope you're wrong, and we do get control of the House and the Senate, and you know, none of this stuff can come back up and can surface for a while. Anyways, so moving on, tyranny, and that would be tyranny, is never far and away in America. Last Thursday, the Supreme Court ruled that OSHA's vaccine requirements for all businesses with over 100 people to either have their employees vaxxed or tested once a week was struck down. And I was reading through the court filings and a few things popped out to me. Yeah, I read all 30 pages today just for this. This is why this is why you need to like this video and subscribe and share it. Got it in there. So listen to this. Applicants are likely to succeed on the merits of their claims that the Secretary lacked authority to impose the mandate. Administrative agencies are creatures of statute. This is directly from the filings. They accordingly possess only the authority that Congress has provided. The Secretary has ordered 84 million Americans to either obtain a COVID-19 vaccine or undergo weekly medical testing at their own expense. This is no everyday exercise of power that it talks about in one of the dissents. It is instead a significant encroachment into the lives and health of a vast number of employees. We expect Congress to speak clearly when authorizing an agency to exercise powers of vast economic and political significance. And here's the thing. They want a mandate from Congress if a executive branch authority or executive branch agency is going to pass down something like this that has sweeping effects on the nation. And Congress did speak on this. It was a resounding no when they put it forth in the Senate on December 8th. No power was delegated to the executive branch from Congress to force this down the people's throats. And honestly, there are serious constitutional concerns on if there is a constitutional power delegated to Congress if they tried to pass this in the first place. Because you get down into the weeds of enumerated powers to the federal government versus general powers to the states. And there's a whole lot. It's actually really interesting to do a deep dive in, but we're going to stay on the surface level here. What's really chilling, though, here's the concurrence. Not only must the federal government properly invoke a constitutionally enumerated source of authority to regulate in this area or any other, it must also act consistently within the Constitution's separation of powers. And when it comes to that obligation, this court has established at least one firm rule. We expect Congress to speak clearly if it wishes to assign to an executive agency decisions of vast economic and political significance. And then they go on to say that OSHA did not meet that requirement. And this is most of the opening 2 pages written by Justice Gorsuch. OSHA does not have the mandate to force this down our throats or into our arms. But what's chilling is in the dissent. So, of course, Justice Sotomayor, Kagan, and the last one's, I think it's Bayer, maybe, is slipping my mind. But this is what they said. Justice dictate for reasons of policymaking. The results of its ruling is squarely at odds with the statutory scheme. As shown earlier, the Act's explicit terms authorize the standard being the shot, the mandate. See, whatever. OSHA must issue an emergency standard in the response to new hazards in workplace that expose employees to grave danger. The entire point of that provision is to enable OSHA to deal with emergencies, to put into effect the new measures needed to cope with new workplace conditions. The enacting Congress, of course, did not tell the agency to issue this standard in response to this COVID-19 pandemic because Congress could not have predicted the future, but that Congress did indeed want OSHA to have tools needed to confront emerging dangers, including contagious diseases in the workplace. So why is this chilling? Well, it's the fact that the left believes that OSHA can issue any emergency standards, or any other agency can issue emergency standards as long as there's a crisis, as long as there's an emergency. And there is always an emergency to the left. They want to rule by executive fiat coming down from agencies with absolutely no mandate from Congress. What do you think? Am I stretching this too far, Marcus?
No, I think this is how things get way too bad whenever you rule out of fear and trying to make things fast because of emergencies out of fear. That's a scary thing.
Well,
it really is.
There's no limiting principle here. There's no the three leftist justices, they have no limiting principle. They can't say, as long as there's some sort of grave danger, some sort of emergency, some sort of crisis, there's no limiting principle on what any of the alphabet agencies could do.
That's why it's scary, because
they want carte blanche on it. Yeah,
it's scary because it the slippery slope that we talk about all the time is, first it starts with an emergency, world virus is sweeping the world. Then, they make up some other emergency to change them all, and that's just how you get way too far out of whack.
Well, I mean, here's what they're trying to do. They're literally trying to put on the same playing field, making construction workers wear hard hats, or having drinkable water, having fresh drinkable water without contagions. They're trying to make that the same as being forced to get the shot. Whereas you can hang up your hard hat at the end of the day, you can't suck the vaccine at the end of the workday out of your arm. You can't just leave it at the office.
No, you can't.
So, underlying everything else, this is again from the dissent, the dispute is a single simple question. Who decides how much protection and of what kind American workers need from COVID-19? An agency with expertise in workplace health and safety, acting as Congress and the President authorized? Well, or I'm pretty sure Congress directly said no to this. Or a court lacking any knowledge of how it's to safeguard workplaces, talking about the Supreme Court, and insulated from responsibility for any damages it caused. So first of all, I want to say that experts have seemed to got every bit of this wrong. From the beginning of the pandemic, the experts have gotten everything wrong. I might get kicked off YouTube for saying that, but they have done everything wrong. But the question asked in both the concurrence and the dissent is this: who decides? So the vote that happened in the Supreme Court went to the people who are elected every 2 and 6 years by the public, Congress. And the fact that the federal government really doesn't have as much power as it acts like it has to regulate public health, because that is not something that has been enumerated to the federal government. That is largely a general power left to the states. It should 100% fall to the states. And with this ruling, freedom won. But if the dissent is anything to go by, the left would want 100% of the control to go to bureaucrats and bureaucracies. Technocrats that really are accountable to no one. Complete administrative tyranny as long as there is a crisis, and trust me, there is always a crisis. This is actually Donald Trump's biggest triumph. The fact that all 3 of his appointees voted in favor of the people. This will only be overshadowed if in June, when the Dobbs versus Jackson case is supposed to be handed down, if they also vote the correct way. That would then be Donald Trump's biggest accomplishment in office.
It could be a huge accomplishment for years.
And years and years and years.
Upon years.
Exactly. So who decides? Well, thankfully, according to the Supreme Court, not OSHA decides. So we're heading up about 50 minutes, and we have one last video that I want to play and a short thing to talk about. And Marcus, I hope you can hear this one, but I doubt it. So we're just, we'll figure it out.
We have never invested as much in public education as we should have, because we've always had kind of a private notion of children. Your kid is yours and totally your responsibility. We haven't had a very collective notion of these are our children. So part of it is we have to break through our kind of private idea that kids belong to their parents or kids belong to their families, and recognize that kids belong to whole communities. Once it's everybody's responsibility and not just the households, then we start making better investment. Evil
Woman right there. They seem to think, so Marcus, what she was saying is that we have to break out of the mold that kids belong to their parents and say that kids belong to everyone. And then somehow that will fix the schools. I don't, yeah. So leftists seem to think that they love your kids more than you do. Newsflash, they do not. Here's the secret though. It's not that they love their kids more than you love your kids. It's that they hate you with a passion, more than Anakin hated Obi-Wan at the end of Revenge of the Sith. They hate your guts and want to burn you on the stake of the future, because they want that future to be their future. They hate you because you are in the way of that, standing in front of your kids. They say you are stopping the collective good. And they want you out of the way to have their kids. So I've said it many times, I personally don't have a kid. I do have a niece. There is exactly one person in this world who loves that little girl more than I do. And that is her mother. There's not one conservative out there. There's not one liberal out there. There is no one except for her mother that loves her as much as I do. And it is insidious for these people to go out and say they could raise her better than her own mother could. That they could love her more than her own mother could. It is evil. Now, that's not, sometimes, in very few instances, parents don't love their children. They are terrible parents. But that is not the case for often. Oftentimes, parents love their kids more than you ever will. And isn't communal raising of kids going poorly? I have to ask that. And I'll ask you this too, Marcus. Look where crime's the highest. It's pretty easy to see that it's where, gangs are raising kids. That they're out on the streets, hanging with the guys. Except that those guys are getting them to go and steal people's cars or hold people up at gunpoint or what have you. Just look what's going on in LA and San Francisco, in New York. Marcus, am I right? Or am I overstepping?
I think you're right. It's like I have a niece and a nephew through my long-term girlfriend. And I see them as my niece and nephew, even though not officially married or anything. But I love them to death. I've been there their entire life, and I got my sister has a son, and I love them to death. And I don't know. It's hard to fathom how you love somebody more than you love those kids. And they say when you have your own kid, you love them even more. So it's like you said, it's hard to fathom loving something more. So
it's not going to happen.
No.
And leftists surely don't love my kids more than I do.
No, that community crap. No, bump that junk.
They're the ones who wanted to tell them at 4 years old, if they're a boy, that, hey, you might be a girl. You certainly do not love them more than I will.
It's like you said, the people that are in prison, usually they didn't have a father figure. And an argument against that's going to be, oh, well, if you're raised by a community, you can have that father figure. And that's not quite how that works. It sounds great, but you need a steady mother and father in your life, or else the odds are stacked greatly against you.
Yeah, and no one's going to love them more than them. So that's it. Thank you for being here, Marcus. You honestly, you make the show better just by your presence. If people could see your smiling face, then they would stay on longer. And we got to get you on camera, man.
Well, maybe one day.
Maybe one day. All right, guys. Like this, if you thought it was good, share it, would help a lot. Or maybe one of the smaller things as they come out through the week, the smaller segments. Subscribe. Also, click that little bell at the side. It'll let you know when I have more content coming your way, like the shorts that we've branched off into. Check those out. They're fun. They're good. They're one-hit wonders. Anyway, go do something that a leftist would try to cancel you for, because if you're doing that, you're probably doing something right. All right, guys. Have a great day. Have a great rest of your week. And don't go to Canada, because, if you believe like me, you might go to jail. See you guys.